What's poppin'? Welcome back to another welcome back to another edition of Money in Motion. It's Friday. Thank you for joining us here today. Somewhat exciting day in markets. I don't know. We're bouncing back a little bit. Had a contract switch in EOS, so got to go over that as well. But don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Great way to support us. So greatly appreciated. Before we jump into the content today, Monte, anything you've been looking at? I mean, we got the DXY coming down a little bit. What are you thinking here? Anything you're looking at?
No. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. Today feels like it's almost the inverse of yesterday, where yesterday we gapped down in the Nasdaq, and then we just came right back up to fill that gap, and then today it could be the exact opposite. But we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. Also, like we were talking about this before the show started, CJ, but Coinbase yesterday, had a really positive day, despite the fact that the Nasdaq was essentially, not risk on, which is atypical for a stock like Coinbase. But Bitcoin did pump a little bit yesterday, and I want to talk about that as well, and then go into some altcoin trades that I'm taking into the weekend. But beyond that, what is up, Mike? What is up, Ross? What is up, UIC? What is up? Sell me your assets. Hope everyone is doing well. Yes, I'm feeling villainous today, and in a good way. Pump or dump? That's the question. And I will attempt to answer that as well. Talk a little bit about ETH BTC. But if there's anything you'd like to start with, CJ, please feel free to go ahead and pull up your charts.
Yeah, I just really appreciate all the participation. Want to say hello to the audience before we get into the charts.
Yeah,
Richard,
definitely.
what's up? Yeah. Do you want to start with like ES and macro? Because
Sure.
Let's like start. DXY and gold are interesting. This one trade I've been working around, but yeah, I mean,
well,
we're up to start the day.
Yeah. So I'm gonna switch to the 15-minute chart so you can see what it looks like here.
Gap filled.
Yeah, exactly. We got that gap fill. And then what happened, I think, was people are like, okay, the gap's been filled. This is going to be the local high of the day. And then, boom, they try and short it, ends up not working out. And that's what's playing out this morning. We saw a comparable thing happen yesterday with Bitcoin. People tried to short it. There weren't too many liquidations. It was like $12 million worth, but it was enough to drive price up, a pretty substantial amount yesterday. And it was kicked off by short liquidations. So keep that in mind. I think we're seeing a comparable thing here where people saw the gap fill. They say, okay, now it's time I can comfortably get short after this gap has been filled. But they're getting punished for that as, price continues to grind higher. So, that's kind of where we're at with the NASDAQ right now. The gap has been filled. You can see some pretty strong distribution there. And the bears may end up being right. This may end up being the top of the day, the end of the week high of about 15.35. If that is the case, then you can expect Bitcoin to basically not do a whole lot over the weekend. But I think if NASDAQ rips up and perhaps heads up towards like this 1550 level, 1530, we could see some really risk on price action in Bitcoin and specifically the altcoins over the weekend. And that's something that excites me a lot because we haven't had a whole lot of volatility in quite some time. So that's what I'm seeing for the NASDAQ. And those are basically like the contingencies that I'm looking for. So if we break above this level here, kind of right where I had that previous line drawn, if we can get above this level and start climbing up towards here, I think that would be a great way to end the week and very bullish for crypto leading into the weekend, especially when you have so much bearish sentiment, still prevalent in the markets. And people are saying like, oh, Bitcoin's going to dump below 25K. There's going to be a lot of shorts that pile in. So also I'd keep in mind, keep checking funding rates, because I think it's going to be very important. You can see people are already leaning towards the short side. Not surprising. So don't be caught off guard if these shorts get squeezed out on a move to the upside. on the back of a positive price action in the Nasdaq. So that's kind of like my broad overview. But I would love to get your thoughts on that as well, because I know you've been watching ES very closely, as well as the DXY, and the relationship between those two in the last couple of weeks here. So
Yeah, my view on equities is pretty much the same as yesterday. I mean, it's like there's not a lot of forced buyers up here. Anyone who wants to really buy is like buying for new all-time highs or like really allocating capital. I don't know if people are really or like willing to do that. Like Monte, we were talking about last night, or like just yesterday, like how if we drop in the S&P, like you need to see like shorts really stack up before maybe we can squeeze higher into new all-time highs. I think looking at like that 12 points of the Livermore like accumulation cycle, you said to me yesterday, you think this might be, the start of a bear market in the ES or start of a broader pullback. Is that something that you still kind of think could happen? Or like, I think it's good to be flexible. Like, obviously, like if we go up, I mean, you can always just like long the breakout into new highs, but is that something you're still kind of looking at or feeling about or feeling,
yeah, I am feeling that that's a possibility. And also to add to that, CJ, we also have, as the title of the show implies, the dreaded death cross.
can I was just about, I got that chart lined up.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll
Pull
bring it up.
Yeah, go ahead. But everyone talks about the death cross, and CJ made a nice thumbnail today that's supposed to scare you. That's what the name is, the death cross. And I'm sure if you turn on CNBC, I didn't even bother today because yesterday they were talking about it, and I'm like, oh god, that means
Wait, even CNBC was talking about a Bitcoin death cross?
yes, yeah.
Whichever technician came up with this signal or this
It's just a 50
phrasing,
day and a 200 day moving average. It's like it's. I mean,
the death cross. All right, so here's a golden cross, which interestingly enough experienced a dump like 2 days after. So a lot of the times these are counter indicators, especially during like echo bubbles. So, you know, like the way I predict stuff sometimes, or I'll say I have a hunch something will happen. That's not necessarily how I trade it. I have to stay disciplined to a process. The market really doesn't care about my hunches over time. But if I had to predict what we would see next week in terms of price action in Bitcoin, looking historically, the death cross or the golden cross, anytime we get the 50 going through the 200, usually it's a counter indicator of the prevailing trend. And that makes sense because these moving averages are just a reflection of historic price action. So once you have the death cross come, it's a reflection of negative price action in the past 45 days we've spent just going lower. So at that point, a lot of shorts stack up, they've gotten squeezed, and then the downtrend or whatever, the neutral trend kind of resumes here. So that's what I'm expecting for Bitcoin. I see people talking about throwing the 2019 playbook away in terms of Bitcoin's echo bubble and what we're seeing now, but I just don't see the reason to do that because it's still been very, very accurate. And, what we've seen historically continues to play out with, I got to say, pretty remarkable accuracy. So, yeah, that's what I predict for Bitcoin next week. We'll see what happens. But like, I don't know, that's I don't want to say like somebody knows something or like, oh, it smells rotten to me. Those Nvidia CEOs selling it's like, yeah, it's up 300%. When do you want them to sell? But it seems like, maybe somebody does know something if you're seeing bids coming in and the price action and things like coin like that. So I don't know. A lot of speculation, but I try to look to history.
yeah, and and to your point, coin, the chart actually looks, in my mind, pretty good. Like yesterday, like you said, very nice pump, despite the fact that there wasn't much, reason for it or justification. But people were putting it seems like, people know something or are trying to front run some sort of catalyst that we may not be aware of. However, today not seeing that same extended positive price action, but That being said, Bitcoin's down on the day, Coinbase is up. Like, it's showing resilience that I wouldn't expect to see typically from a crypto related equity like Coinbase. So I find that interesting. And I think you're right in the sense that, like, okay, we saw that correlation in the upside yesterday. We're not seeing the correlation in the downside today. What's up with that? Why isn't Coinbase falling alongside Bitcoin? Um, it doesn't exactly make a whole lot of sense. But I think if you factor in the fact that the DXY is putting in this kind of, you know, this topish looking formation, people are getting risk on. If you want exposure to risk, where else? What's better than Coinbase for risk on assets? Maybe Mara, Riot, or like SQQQ or something, but like a levered ETF. But really, like, if you're looking for risk, and if you think that this is a sign that we're going to go risk off, or we're going to go risk on, excuse me, then Coinbase may be the place that you look to play that, right? If people are going to inject money into the market, then, one of the best movers, one of the fastest movers has been Coinbase. So to me, the outperformance yesterday was a little bit like surprising. But I think what's even more surprising today is the resilience it's showing, despite a Bitcoin that's declining. So, you need to take note of these things, and I think it's important to consider. Wall Street doesn't hate Coinbase right now. They used to, but now it's starting to seem like, if you want to get some quick ROI, Coinbase might be the place to put some capital.
It's all about relative strength, right? Like, I mean, Luna was such a good example of this back in the day because it like out of any altcoin. Now let's just forget the end of the movie and pretend we didn't see that. But the first half of the movie was really, really good, award-winning, Oscar-worthy. But you could just see it in the bids. Like, I remember we had the sell-off in Bitcoin, and just this massive wick. I think Luna went down to like 70, and then by the next day, it was back up to 90. Like, it was such strong. And you see that supply absorption. So maybe you see that in coin continue, but based on the relative strength, if we do see some type of death cross squeeze in Bitcoin, either over the weekend or next week, coin could finish one of these days up like 10 or 20% and go back retest 100. So, and after then, who knows what it does. But that does seem like kind of an interesting risk reward setup at our current point. But I want to go back and talk about DXY. Because I do have a trade in that one.
Yes, please do.
All right, yeah, so DXY is coming down. Yesterday was just so, and the day before with people talking about it was just so prevalent. But yeah, here, let me show the positioning for gold. So yeah, gold has been crowded with shorts. A lot of people still trying to short it. As you can look, we did get a little bit of covering last week, but based on the last 2 days of price action before today's price increase, I would assume there was some more shorts, especially people kind of maybe who are short the dollar, shorting gold to potentially hedge. Either way, I think this is an area where you have pretty good defined risk. So, in this particular situation, I like to go on like the hourly on the 15-minute. Once I see that a trade is crowded, and then you can look for these relative support levels. Once we kind of start bouncing up, take a long like here or even here, and just cut it below this recent low. So the risk is very defined, and if I'm right, then we can just go ride it up and potentially make new highs in gold next week. The dollar's very, very overextended. Doesn't mean it can't come down to this level in the short term, but it's all about that relative strength, right? And gold is one of the assets as well that's had really good relative strength during this entire uptrend in the dollar. I think this day right here, going back to last week, we actually closed up, and when you compare that to other precious metals like silver or even copper or many others, like it was just a very rough week for those. So to me, a lot of this is about positioning, sentiment, and of course, relative strength in terms of correlations. Last thing that we mentioned yesterday was just Nikkei. Its trade is working so far, but we'll see if risk on price action comes back and stops me out at the end, or maybe next week. But it has worked so far. We'll see. A little bit of a hammer candle here today. But that's about all I've got in the short term in terms of like futures trade setups. Solana not really doing much, just chilling at the bottom of the range.
Yeah, I did actually want to briefly talk about Solana because I do think there is a possibility we see some positive price action out of Solana over the weekend, and one reason why is because of one of the factors that you just mentioned there, and that is positioning. Positioning. Currently, traders are net short Solana, and I think so part of the reason why I like Solana in particular is, and this is kind of ironic, is it has two things going against it, right? It had the Visa narrative that was people are, saying sell the news, buy the rumor, sell the news event. It's nothing. Just get rid of it. Also, Bitcoin approaching a breakdown level. I think that this sets up a tremendous opportunity for a short squeeze in Solana. And what's great is you have defined risk, right, at the $19 level. So anything below that, cut it. You can put on a low leverage long, and I think it could plausibly play out in your favor over the weekend. But once again, you have this clearly defined area of risk. I would set it a little bit below that at about 1895 or 1893, around that range, and basically just get long with the goal that, or with the idea in mind that the Nasdaq is going to close up today. We're going to see Bitcoin see some short squeezing and actually plausibly flip green on the weekend, and I think that would lead to some massive short covering and thus positive price action in Solana. So that's one trade I'm in right now. That's really the only trade I'm in right now, and I will remain in it until it breaks down below that $19 level, or if it reaches my take profit level at about 25.2 here, up at this previous swing high. So that's what I'm looking at for Solana, and a lot of people super bearish on it, and that's kind of what makes me bullish on it, ironically. So
That's what I like to hear. All right, a couple more I want to go through.
for sure.
So I really like this asset. This is the largest e-commerce retailer in South Korea, Coupang. And this is Druckenmiller's second largest holding of his portfolio next to NVIDIA, and actually has an average price of like higher. So he's been kind of hedging this one out, it looks like, through his portfolio over the year. But I have to say this chart looks pretty good. Each time we've come down and tested this level, prices managed to make new highs. So at least you have very good defined risk. At yesterday's low, I was really impressed at how bullish price action came back to end the day, and we actually closed up. So just one ticker that I have next to coin here. I've been looking at this. I don't trade a whole lot of stocks, but this one is pretty interesting to me. Given how badly Cosby's beat down and how we've been trending here. It's a nice technical formation. And, if the thesis of South Korean e-commerce giant growing even larger, it comes to fruition and is true, and Druckenmiller is right on this particular idea, then it could be an interesting trade. But, if this made new lows, I wouldn't just hold it saying, oh, well, Druckenmiller likes it, so I'm going to hold it. Like, no. It's great that he likes it, but the price action has to confirm it. And,
Right.
We have to have bullish price action continue, obviously, to stay in the position. But that could be interesting and might be a name worth looking at.
Interesting. Adding it to my radar as we speak.
Yeah, put it next to your Samsung allocation. Cotton, we talked about being crowded to the long side after yesterday's sell-off, starting to get a little bit more bids come back in. So maybe if I see some more weakness from these levels, maybe worth another short. Not trying to do too much though, given it's the end of the week. But what I like to do when shorting or looking to long, kind of like what I did with gold, is like, you try to map out some of these levels. If we come back into them and deviate lower and then start holding, like that's where, I like to take a shot on a short or something like that. And if we go above, like cut it for the 50 basis points loss of my portfolio and just move on. But if something kind of like that comes up by next week, I think it might be worth a shot. God, heating oil is absolutely relentless.
Oh wow, like another push at the highs there.
Yeah, XLE is. I was so wrong about energy and the positioning. Like it was so crowded going into this month, and it just went even higher. So yeah, I mean, this stuff's not perfect, but it's a good risk manager tool.
For sure. For sure. Well, I think that is about all we got for today, unless there's anything else you'd like to add. But thank you guys a lot for the participation and all the comments. Great stuff. Really, really, really appreciate it. Hope you guys had a great week. And of course, as always, if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely head over to tradethechain.com for a 14-day free trial. You can try it completely free for 14 days. That gives you access to the sentiment dashboard where you can see what's hot, what's not. You can also get access to the Discord and chat with CJ, myself, Nick, and community members from all around the world. We're basically always in there sharing insights. And they go in there first before they get posted anywhere publicly. So if you want access to all that, definitely check it out. And please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps out the channel. But that's all we got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend.